Hey, welcome back to 90s Bball Cards. Jake Roy here. So today we have a little bit of a different video for you. I know in the past we went to the East Coast Nationals and we did some Beckett RCRs and then we did a reveal of those Beckett grades. Today we're going to be looking at a number of cards that I have that I'm getting prepared for a PSA order. So I'm going to go over some tips and tricks and some of my best practices for PSA submissions. We're going to look at the cards. We're going to talk about what I'm hoping they get for grades. Some potential values, and then later on keep an eye out for when that PSA order comes back. We'll do a reveal. Hopefully we get some excitement out of that as well. So let's get into it. All right, so like I said, we have some cards here that we're getting ready. We've got a stack here, 30 plus cards that we're getting ready for a PSA order. So this is gonna be a little bit of everything. We got some vintage baseball, some vintage football as well, a little bit of that. We've got some modern basketball, some 90s basketball. We've also got some football in here from the 90s and some that's a little bit newer. So a little bit of everything, so something for everybody to come and enjoy. Some great cards in here, some cards that we pulled on channel, and then some cards that I have some fun stories that I can share towards the end. So a lot of fun stuff. You will notice, if you're not familiar with PSA submissions, these are in very thin sleeves. And these are called card savers. So first tip that we'll get into is when you are submitting to PSA, they do require that you have those cards sent in what is called a card saver 1. Now there are two different companies really that make them, so the Ultra Pro don't necessarily say card saver 1, but you'll see when we're going through, some of them do say card saver 1 on there. Those are from BCW, so really Ultra Pro, BCW, those are the top two brands for protective cases when it comes to cards. And these thin sleeves are what PSA and Beckett require you to have your cards in when submitting. The other piece that I'm doing is I'm going through a service that does bulk submissions. I will put their website down in the description, but they allow you to send cards into them and they submit cards in a large bulk order every single week. Now, the benefits to doing bulk orders are you get a significantly reduced price per card for grading. They offer a 20-day turnaround now. PSA currently has kind of gotten rid of the guaranteed turnaround times. They're very backlogged. So I've been hearing that the 20-day turnaround can take about 2 months. So, you know, when it says 20 days, it's not actually, you're going to get it back in 20 days. And we experienced the same thing with our Beckett order back over the summer when they didn't even have as much of a backlog as they do now. So PSA definitely has a significant backlog as well as Beckett. So those turnaround times are not guaranteed. It's just kind of a guideline. So those are some of the tips and tricks. I suggest going with a reputable group submission, and there are individual collectors who will do that. I know a few of them, and there are some other companies and stuff. Some of them will wipe down your cards for you, some of them won't. So there are different options when you're looking at doing a group submission, but that is the best bang for your buck, because if you're just sending it in by yourself, especially if you're not a member of PSA, you're going to be spending a little bit more per card, so it just kind of cuts down on some of that price, and they also take care of some of the paperwork for you and such. So definitely the most efficient process that I've seen. So their information is down in the description, the company that I'm going through. So let's go through. I'll go through each of the cards and show you guys what we have. I will share with you what I'm hoping the grade is. And some of them it's kind of a little bit more of a range. I'm usually pretty conservative when I'm estimating the grade, because when you send these in, you are supposed to select a designated value based on what you're expecting the grade to be. And I also like to kind of temper my expectations, so I'm not just saying everything's a PSA 10, because that's definitely not the case, as you'll see with a lot of these cards. So let's get in and look at some of the details here. All right, so we'll try to buzz through these relatively quickly, but go through some detail. So the first one here that we have is a 1964 Topps Willie Mays. Pretty cool card here. And what I'm looking at on this is probably a PSA 5, maybe a 6. So it's about a $50 card if it gets a 5. So that's what I'd be happy with. Not perfect edges, corners, typical stuff there for a vintage card. Next, I've got 2 copies of this one. We've got the 1967 Topps Joe Namath, so Broadway Joe, the Jets, you know, star quarterback back in the day. So this is a really cool one. And this was, along with a lot of other cards that I'll talk more in detail about at the end, a card that I got in a game from my grandparents back in the 90s when I was a kid. So, you know, pretty cool card. I've had this for quite a while. Hoping that each of these get at least a PSA 4. I could see them maybe getting a PSA 7 at best. You know, but again, I like to be conservative. There's definitely centering issues, and there could be some issues with corners and edges that I just can't pick up. So let's just say they get a PSA 4. They're about a $50 to $60 card in a 4 to 5. So that's what I'm hoping for on those 2. Next one here is an interesting one. So this was the Fleer Ted Williams set, and it's a set all about Ted Williams, and this specific one with Babe Ruth is one of the more collectible cards in that set. You know, so this is definitely not in great shape. You can see some rounding on the corners. You know, this one I'm really hoping it gets a 4 or a 5. You know, that's kind of the best I could hope for, but I could see a situation where it might get a little bit less, but I'm going to be optimistic and hope for at least a 4, and that would be about a $40 to $50 card if it does come in at a 4. Next one here, pretty nice one here. We got a 1959 Topps Mickey Mantle All-Star card. So this one, it definitely has some significant issues. You can see, you know, a pretty chewed up corner, you know, a lot of rounding on the corners. You know, this one, in all honesty, I'm hoping this gets a 2. I'd be a little bit bummed out if I got a PSA 1, but a PSA 2 would get this at about an $80 value. You know, I can't imagine it would even get up to a 5, but, you know, maybe I get lucky and I get a 3 or a 4. But, you know, PSA 2, given all the, you know, noticeable issues and, you know, who knows what else they might pick up as well, a PSA 2 is kind of what I'm hoping for on that one. Next one here, this is a little bit of an interesting one. So, full disclosure, I did a little bit of trimming on this card. And before you get too alarmed, so this is a 1959 Bazooka of Orlando CEPEDA. So this is one of those cards, you know, there are some cards from like cereal boxes, Post, or some Jello boxes. This happened to be on the bottom of a Bazooka chewing gum box. And you would cut this out of the box. So when I got this, it's actually something that my uncle had that he had given to me. This thing was in pretty rough shape. So, you know, we'll go into a little bit more detail on this one. So usually those cards would have like a black border around the card where you would cut, and what PSA likes to see to give a numeric grade is the entire continuous black border, and this did not have any of that. My, you know, uncle did the best job he could as a kid to cut this out of the box, but definitely, you know, was not precise by any means. So what I did is I just, because it's already a hand cut card, I just kind of cut it down to make it look a little bit cleaner. You definitely still have a little bit of, you know, edge issue here, but I'm not even looking to get a numeric grade on this. I'm looking to get this just purely authenticated. You know, so I expected it would come back authenticated. You can't really have these cards be altered because they are originally hand cut. So it is common practice that with those Jello and those, you know, Post cereal and Bazooka cards, that people do kind of make them look a little bit more presentable by hand, but by no means making anything worth more, because it's just going to get authenticated without having that border. So if this, assuming it does get authenticated, this would be about a $70 card. You know, Orlando CEPEDA might not be the most recognizable name, but he was a slugger. There is a Mickey Mantle in the set that is a very valuable card. These are pretty hard to come by. You know, 1959, you can imagine what's happened with some of those cartons. So hopefully this comes back authenticated, but $70. Next 2 we have here are Tom Seaver rookie cards. So these are from 1968 Topps, and these were other cards that I got in that game from my grandparents back in the day when I was a kid. So both of these are, you know, they look pretty clean for the corners and the edges, definitely some centering issues. I'm hoping that these get a 5. I could see maybe a situation where they get up to a 7 at best. But, you know, let's say it gets a 5. These are both going to be about $30 to $40 cards in a PSA 5. So let's hope we get those back nicely. Next one, also from 1968 Topps, and again in that game for my grandparents, we have Hank Aaron. So this one definitely has some more centering issues. In fact, you can even see a little bit of white down the bottom. So, you know, it's pretty far off center. So, you know, again, I conservatively would say I could hope for a 4 on this one. But I could see a situation again where maybe it gets up to a 7 at best. But out of 4, this is about a $50 card for the Hank Aaron. You know, a little bit of a later in his career card, but definitely cool. I always enjoyed Hank Aaron cards. Next up, we've got Rod Carew rookie, again, 1968 Topps, and also from that game for my grandparents. So this one, you know, Rod Carew was a star second baseman, but not a household name like Hank Aaron, Mickey Mantle, some of the other guys we've seen. So this one, I'm hoping that the Rod Carew gets a 5, kind of similar to the Tom Seaver, but I could see a situation where it could get up to a 7. In a 5, this is about a $30 card, so definitely not the most valuable card that I have here, but a very cool rookie card there for Rod Carew. Next up, we've got a Bob Gibson, again, 1968 Topps, and this was also from that game that my grandparents had. This one, you know, it's a little bit better shape than the rest of them. I'm hoping this one gets a 6. Again, I could see it get up to a 7, but in a 6, this is about a $30 card as well. Bob Gibson, one of the all-time great pitchers. Really cool card there. This one's a little bit interesting. So this is one of those postcards I was talking about when we were looking at the Orlando CEPEDA. This is a 1962 postcard of Roger Maris. And this one is another one that I'm hoping to get authenticated. I didn't cut it down any. This is the way that my uncle had actually cut it when he was a kid. Not sure the value on this. This doesn't really get graded, but this is one that I'm actually getting graded to give as a gift to somebody who, you know, Roger Maris was their namesake, and 1961 was when he had that home run record, and that was also the same year this person was born, so should be a kind of cool thing. I'm hoping that it just gets authenticated. Not looking for a numeric grade, but if it got a numeric grade, that'd be cool. But again, not something I'm really expecting anything specific, and it's not very valuable either way, just something I want to get encased. Here we've got the 1995-96 Topps Stadium Club Michael Jordan Rain Men. This is one that we pulled on the channel, so you might remember that video. I'll try to link that up down in the description when we pulled that out of a retail box of Topps Stadium Club. Very exciting pull. So this is one that I'm very hopeful will grade well. Michael Jordan cards are always nice to have in good grades. You know, this we got right out of the pack, got it right into a case. It's in really good shape. I'm hoping that this gets a PSA 9. You know, maybe it gets a 10. I really don't expect that. I think a 9 would be great on this. I would be a little bit bummed out, in all honesty, if it got lower than a 9, but you know, we'll see what happens. Sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you don't. So in a 9, this is about a $40 to $50 card. So hopefully it gets that at least. Next up, we've got a 1997-98 Topps Stadium Club first day issue. You can see it right down the bottom. These were short printed but not numbered. There's no numbering on the back like the future years. So the estimated print run on these is about 200 or 250. You know, so this is a Penny Hardaway. This is a card that would be nice to have in my PC. You know, I'm hoping this gets a 9. You know, it could potentially get an 8. I really can't imagine it would get a 10, but if we get really lucky, that's great. Be very happy with that. But this one isn't one that you frequently see. I mean, there's less than a half a dozen of these graded between both the grading services, PSA and BGS. So there's no comps to base any value on this. So it's really hard to tell what this might be worth, but you know, hoping for a good grade. That'd be really cool. Another penny item. So this is the 96-97 Flair Showcase, numbered to 150. So this one also, just like that, the last penny, I'm hoping it gets a 9. I can't imagine it gets a 10. Would be bummed out if it gets an 8. If it gets a 10, though, I'd be, you know, really excited. You know, and there only being 150 of these, definitely not something that you find graded often, and not something that you see sell graded very often. So, you know, hard for me to really put a value on this, and it's a PC item, so not sure I'd let this go, even if it does grade very well. So that's that one. Now we're getting into some non-basketball stuff. So here we have a Baker Mayfield from 2018 Panini Donruss Optic, and this is a HOLO silver. So this is one that I actually pulled. I was going to a Walmart looking actually to get some PRIZM basketball. They didn't have any, but they did have a number of this year's Optic football packs in the clearance section. So I grabbed all the clearance football optic packs and was ripping through them, hoping to get something nice, and coincidentally got, you know, pretty much one of the better rookie cards that you could get out of those packs. So, you know, Baker Mayfield being the #1 pick. This card was a hot card leading into the NFL season this year. Baker didn't have the greatest season, but there's definitely still some hope for him. So this one we're hoping gets a PSA 10, in all honesty. It got right out of the packet, right into this Card Saver 1. Again, you can see this is different than those Ultra Pros. It says Card Saver 1 right on the top there. But if this does get a 10, this is about a $100 card. And, you know, like I said, before the season started, this was definitely more than $100 in a PSA 10. Things have cooled down, but we'll see what happens leading up to the next season, or if he has a really good season this coming year. So hopefully we get a 10 on that one. Next one we have here, 2019 Panini Prism Rui Hachimura Sensational Signatures. So this is a rookie auto, a sticker auto of Rui, and he's a highly anticipated prospect. You know, so this one, again, modern cards typically grade pretty well. We're hoping this one gets a 10. In a 10, this is roughly a $100 card. So, you know, hopefully we get lucky and this grades out well. Would be a little bit bummed, honestly, if this didn't get a 10, but we'll see what happens. Getting into some of the, you know, older football stuff, we have here a 2001 Upper Deck Rookie FX Tom Brady. This is a base card of the Rookie FX set from Upper Deck in 2001. So this is his second year. It's not a rookie card. Tom Brady's rookie year was 2000. But because Tom Brady didn't really kind of explode onto the scene until later, you know, a couple years into his career, there were not very many 2001 or 2002 cards made of Tom Brady. So when you can find one that's early in his career, they definitely hold a premium. So this one we're hoping gets a 9. You know, I could see it getting maybe a 10, but a 9 is probably a little bit more realistic for that. And if it does get a 9, it's about a $150 card. So that'd be nice. Next here we have a 2019 Panini Absolutes KABOOM insert, rookie insert of Daniel Jones, or Danny Dime. All right, so this KABOOM is, you know, pretty cool looking set. So again, you know, these modern cards tend to grade pretty well, and hoping for a 10 on this. If it gets a 10, it's about a $170 card, and that's kind of a guesstimate because these don't pop up. I have seen a PSA 10 Gold, which is numbered to 10, significantly different card than this. You know, that was over a $300 card when that was sold. So I'm estimating about $170 if this becomes a PSA 10. So hopefully this does well. Next, also from 2019 Absolute, this is a blue parallel numbered to 50. This is number 50 out of 50. So, you know, that good old eBay 1 of 1. You know, so this one, again, hoping that it grades well, hoping for a 10 on this one. If it gets a 10, you know, again, kind of hard to estimate because there's only 50 of them and there's none that are numbered 50 out of 50. And, you know, it does hold a premium to some collectors, not necessarily everybody. You know, but I could guesstimate maybe $100 if this does grade out at a 10. So hopefully that does well for us as well. Next we have here is a 2002 Bowman Chrome Tom Brady. So again, you know, this is early in his career, not a ton of Tom Brady cards. This is just a base card, not a refractor or anything. You know, hoping for a 10 on this as well. Tend to see good grades on chromium cards, but definitely not a guarantee by any means. But if this does grade out at a 10, this would be about a $170, $780 card, somewhere right around there. So hopefully this does well for us. All right, next up we have another 2019 Panini Donruss Optic. This is Daniel Jones. This is a red parallel, and again, hoping for a 10 here. Looks like it's pretty well centered and whatnot. If this gets a 10, this would be about a $150 card for Danny Dimes. Next up, we've got a 2019 Panini Donruss Optic Drew Lock Holo. So this is one of the silvers, you know, rookie card for Drew Lock. He's, you know, one of those rookie quarterbacks this year that played a little bit, did fairly well. People are excited that he might be, you know, the next big quarterback in Denver. So hopefully Drew Lock does well this year. But this one, if it does grade well and gets a 10 for us, this is about a $100 card currently. So not a lot of these on the market, so it's kind of an estimate on how that would do, but hopefully it does well. Next two we have here are Tom Brady, 2002 Topps Chrome, again, early in his career, so, you know, like to see those do well. You know, can see a little bit of variance in the centering on both of these. You can see it's a little bit more of a border here on the top, a little bit thinner on the top on the other one. You know, I'm not an expert on the centering for these, so I couldn't tell you which one's better center, but one of them is better than the other one. You know, so we'll see how these do with PSA. You know, hopefully they get 10s. I know that, you know, sometimes they give you a little bit of leeway with the centering on some of these chromium cards. So if they do get 10s, like we're hoping for, these would be about a $150 card each. So hopefully those do well for us. Next up we have is a 2019 Panini Prism Football DK Metcalf Silver. So DK Metcalf, you know, had a great end to the season. He looks like he's going to be a phenomenal receiver. So some of his rookie cards have started to really take an uptick in, you know, kind of the notoriety, and people are starting to take a little bit more notice of his rookie cards. You know, and obviously rookie cards of non-quarterbacks tend to not be quite as collectible and sought after. You know, so we'll see what happens with his cards and how his career goes. But he looks like he has a promising career in front of him. Hoping that this one gets a 10. If it gets a 10, again, not a lot of these are on the market right now, but you know, you could guesstimate about $70 for this one. Next up, getting into some 90s football, really cool card here. We've got a 1997 Topps Finest. This is a gold embossed, and you can see it's die cut as well. So very similar to the 97-98 Topps Finest set for basketball. You know, you have the gold embossed parallels that are die cut. There are also the refractor versions that are serial numbered as well. This one is not the refractor, so no serial numbering on this, but these are very hard to pull. You know, really cool cards. And John Elway, one of the all-time great quarterbacks. So, you know, again, hoping that this grades well, hoping for a 10 here. You know, 90s cards are definitely not guaranteed 10s right out of the pack. But if it gets a 10, again, not a lot of these on the market. A guesstimate of value would be about $100. Next two I'll do together here. So we've got two from the same set. These are 1998-99 Upper Deck. And these are Star Power Silver Parallels. So it's an insert set, Star Power, and then a parallel of that insert set. So these are both numbered to 100. We've got Ray Allen and Grant Hill. And these are cards that you might remember from our video when we were opening some of these packs. My friend Joe is collecting this set, and his goal eventually is to have the entire set and have them all PSA graded, just so they are all uniform in their slabs. So these are the first two that he's going to be sending in to get graded from that group and see how they do. He's hoping that they do well and get 10s. We'll see how that goes. If the Grant Hill gets a 10, that's probably about $170, $190 card. And the Ray Allen's probably about $150 to $170 card in a PSA 10. So hopefully those do well for him. Now we've got some that you might remember. We pulled a bunch of, you know, nice rookie cards in our Prism opening. So here we have the Ja Morant Prism, and this is a base rookie. So this one, you know, I tend to be a little more conservative. I'm hoping for a 9 on this. If it gets a 10, that would be phenomenal, but really not expecting that. So in a 9, this is probably about a $150 card, roughly. So we'll see how this does, but if it does well for me, then I'll be pretty excited. You know, if it surprises me and gets a 10, I'll be pretty floored, but we'll see how it does. Next we have the Kobe White Silver. So this is the silver that my brother actually opened the pack, and I had opened some off camera, and I had also pulled this card. So I decided to take a look at which one looks like it's in the best shape and submit that for grading. You know, and I'm going to be a little bit optimistic because I did take a look at the two. I think this one's in the better condition out of the two. I would love to see it get a 10. If it does get a 10, it's about a $100 card. You know, Kobe White has had quite a stint recently, playing pretty well, so some of his cards have taken an uptick. We'll see how he continues to go during the season, but you know, it'll really be determined by, you know, when we get these cards back, how he's performing, and you know, if the Bulls are making a push or not. So we'll see how this does grading, and we'll see what the value is like when we get it back. Next one is a DeAndre Hunter PRIZM-SILVER rookie as well. So DeAndre Hunter with the Hawks, kind of an exciting team right now. He's not the most prolific player on that team. Trae Young definitely takes the highlights. But he is one that a lot of people are seeing a lot of promise with. So this silver hopefully does well. I would love to see it get a 10. But if it does get a 10, this is also, like the Kobe White, about a $100 card. And last but not least, we have here a 2010 Panini Studio rookie of Steph Curry. So Steph Curry in that old Warriors uniform, his rookie season, really looking like a little kid compared to now. Really cool stuff. My wife is a big fan of Steph Curry, so this is actually a set that I enjoyed back when it first came out, before I really knew a lot about Panini, and some of the other players like Topps were still in the game, and I really liked the look of these cards. I know some people aren't as fond with the horizontal cards, but I really enjoyed these. So I recently found a bunch of packs that I opened back in the day, and found that I pulled a couple of Steph Curry's. I've actually got multiple copies of this card, and this was the one that I thought was probably in the best shape out of all of them. I would love to see it get a 10. Not really sure if it will. A 9 would be nice too. So if it gets a 9, it's probably about a $30 to $40 card. If it gets a 10, probably about a $50 to $100 card. There is a lot of variation in Steph Curry cards right now, with him just coming back from his injury, and the Warriors not doing very well this year. There's definitely a little bit less attention on his rookie cards right now. So, we'll see how this does and see what I decide to do with it. But, kind of a fun card that my wife is going to be excited to see. So that's what we've got for that PSA submission. All right, so those are the 30 some odd cards I have that are ready for PSA. So kind of a smattering of everything. Like I said, I was going to tell you guys the story about some of these Topps cards. So my grandparents, when I was probably about 10 or 11 years old, they had a summer cottage that my brothers and I would spend a lot of time at with them, and they knew that we were really into card collecting. So they went to a local yard sale, tag sale, garage sale, whatever you want to call it, and they saw this card game called Win a Card. So they picked it up for us. They thought it would be something fun we could do with our between the three of us with our cards. So when we got it and we opened it and started looking through, we saw all these cards, these old baseball cards. We figured they're kind of props for the game. I was still kind of learning the ropes as a collector. My older brother was a much more seasoned collector and knew baseball quite a bit more than I did. He went to a lot of card shows, so he was pretty well versed in the vintage department as well, which I was not. So he was looking at these and he was flabbergasted to see that these were real cards. These were vintage old cards. And, so we put these in penny sleeves and top loaders immediately, and they sat in those sleeves for decades. For probably 20 years about. And then, we kind of unearthed it again, and I said, well, a lot of these are probably, relatively valuable. Started taking a look, doing a little bit of research, and figured out which ones might be worth getting graded. And as I was doing some research, I found out that actually that game, there was another copy of that game that popped up on eBay, came with these cards. So these cards that came in that were specific to Milton Bradley, which was the maker of that game. So it is kind of like a variant, almost like an international version, like we've talked about with some of the 90s basketball cards. A variant of the 1968 Topps set that was specific to that board game. So these were kind of props for the game, but they are legitimate cards that were made by Topps. They aren't fake or phony or just kind of toys. These are definitely collectible, very collectible cards. There's no real determination on how much more scarce these may be than the regular Topps set, and in some cases I've seen these get graded by PSA, the Milton Bradley versions, and not denote the Milton Bradley, and then some do. So I can tell that obviously even the experts can be confused by them at times. So really interesting stuff. A lot of memories that I have with these. But my brothers and I decided it's probably time to part with them, and the best way to do that is to get them graded, so that way somebody who is either a collector or a dealer knows exactly what some of the more prominent ones, like the Hank Aaron and the Rod Carew, Tom Seaver, like we were talking about, they're sure of what those are. PSA is definitely the way to go for vintage cards in general, whether it's baseball or football or basketball. You know, and then some of the other ones I had talked about, the Orlando CEPEDA, the tall card. That's one that my uncle had that he had given to us. He knew that we were into cards again, and said that he would like to see us have these and enjoy those. So now it's time to kind of pass it along. The same thing with some of the other ones. These were also cards that my uncle had. You know, my uncle was not a big sports person, but he enjoyed kind of some of the statistics and some of the history of sports. So he definitely got into that with cards, and kept those for a long time, and then passed them on to us. So a lot of fun memories, a lot of kind of cool stuff. It'll be exciting to share with him what these get graded at. He's not into cards now, but he definitely understands and appreciates. So, you know, a lot of fun memories, a lot of cards that we pulled. You know, we talked about the Jordan Rain Men. I've got a couple of penny PC items. We talked about the Baker Mayfield HOLO. So, you know, a lot of fun memories. Hopefully these do well for us in grading. But we'll see. We'll see what they come back at. We'll see what they might be worth after they get graded. And, you know, full transparency, the majority of these I am looking to move after grading. So I want to get them graded, see how they do, and then probably going to move majority of these, especially the vintage ones. Like I talked about with the penny cards, those ones I'm not as sure what I want to do with. And obviously those Superpower Silvers that are in my buddy Joe's collection are, you know, those are PC items, that those are not moving. You know, but the Jordan and some of the vintage cards, those are, you know, potentially cards that I would look to move depending on how they do. So we'll see how they do. But that's what we got. So be on the lookout for that video when the PSA submission comes back. Hopefully we do very well. But question of the day for you is, what has your experience been with grading through PSA? Have you submitted cards, or are you thinking about submitting cards? Have you done it through a group bulk service, or did you do it on your own? So drop that down in the comments. What has your experience been, and what kind of services have you taken advantage of? So drop that down in the comments. Love to have that conversation with you and share the results when they get back. So thanks as always. New videos will drop on Wednesdays. Any bonus videos will drop on Fridays. If you're new here, please consider subscribing and take a look at the merch shop. I don't have any merch on today, but there's a lot of fun stuff in there. So take a look at that and let me know if you have any questions. All right, we'll talk later. Bye.